So I got my hair cut a few weeks ago. If you watch some of my older videos, it was kind of longer. And one thing I noticed that changed after I cut my hair was that people actually believe me now when I say that I'm a fashion designer. And I don't feel like much else has changed. I'm wearing a little bit more makeup, a little bit more jewelry to kind of offset losing some femininity in the hair. Um, but the way that I dress is about the same, I think. But I don't need to convince people anymore that I'm a fashion designer. They actually just believe me. They're like, oh, you look like a fashion designer. I'm like, oh, no one's ever really told me that before. And it's interesting because it got me a little bit worried because then I felt like, okay, now I look like society's idea of what a fashion designer looks like. But I was worried that I was maybe straying too far from what a real fashion designer looks like. Because if you read my article or watched my video on 8 reasons why fashion designers don't dress fashionably, I was afraid that I was pulling too far away from that. But then I realized, there's a big difference between dressing fashionably and dressing well. I still think that I'm within those limits of the article in that I don't dress fashionably. I wear a lot of basics, and I do try to dress well though. I try to focus on fit, and that in and of itself is a huge challenge because I'm very, very short. But I think it ups your game a little bit if you have clothing that fits you really well or looks like it fits you. It just takes your image to another level. So I thought, okay, you know what? Actually, I'm not straying too far. I still don't dress fashionably, I would say. Second thing I thought of was that, I am trying to get a little bit away from being a fashion designer. It's not what I do anymore on a day to day basis. And I'm kind of leaning more in the direction of things like this, like talking about fashion. I want to be a fashion industry professional. I want to talk about fashion. I want to be a voice for fashion designers because that's what I have done. That's what I went to school for was fashion design, and that's my whole background. But I do feel like there's a lacking of a voice for fashion designers. You don't hear a lot from fashion designers. They don't tend to say a lot. They tend to be behind the scenes a lot. And I think that we need a voice. And I'd like to be that voice. So I thought, I do look like a fashion industry professional. So I think I'm going in the right direction. And I think if I'm going to have a personal image and be more exposed to the public eye, it is a good idea for me to look more like what society thinks somebody in the fashion industry looks like. So I think I'm going in the right direction, and I'm happy with my new look, and I already feel more like a fashion industry professional, so that's a really great feeling.